For the past 5 years, it has been my dream to learn how to sail on the ocean. Now, this is a documentary on my first ever sailing trip. We did over 100 nautical miles at sea through the around the south coast of England, from Southampton to Dartmouth, some of the roughest waters in the United Kingdom. I've filmed and documented the entire experience, and I've interviewed the crew, and I hope you enjoy it.
Well, I'm Rory Wood. I am 22, just finished university. I studied winemaking and viticulture at university, so I'm just hopefully graduating from that now. And yeah, I've lived in Somerset most of my life before moving to Brighton to do this degree. And I have always loved sailing. I grew up on a boat. My dad was a sailor. And I did a lot of dinghy racing and stuff back in the day in Hong Kong and Australia. Especially Australia, I did more sailing, and then I moved back to Somerset when I was 8 or so, and I was a bit landlocked, so I stopped sailing for quite a while, and then the bug caught me again, and I've always wanted to own a boat, really. I've been looking at boats online since I was sort of 14, 15, always wanting to own one, and fate had it that actually the boat found me through a really good friend, my best friend, and they referred me to this family who own the boat, and here we are now, and I couldn't be happier for her to have found me. Yeah, it's a brilliant bit of fate.
So, do you want to tell us a bit about this journey we've just been on?
Yes, so we started in Southampton. The boat needed to be moved from Brighton to here, Dartmouth, and we started in Southampton because I didn't have any crew for the last week. I called Lucy Trinder, and she had a friend called Josh, and they then met me in Southampton, where we then started sailing from Southampton to Weymouth, and then Weymouth to Dartmouth. And that was the plan anyway. They joined me on the boat in Southampton on Sunday afternoon. We got the boat ready, and then we set off Monday morning. Well, I'm just looking at the Navionics right now, which is my charting app, or one of them. And this is just charting out the distance that we have to travel to a place called Carlshot Spit here, which is the first part of our journey before heading off out into the Western Solent.
Very cool.
Yeah, my name is Lucy, and my father grew up sailing this boat, and I grew up sailing this boat as well. So my earliest memories are sailing. My very, very earliest memories were sailing in a dinghy around an island when I was about 6 months old. I just sailed with my father, but basically from when I was born, I've been sailing this boat. Yeah. My grandfather was called Frank, and he happened to be in Berlin in 1945, just when they were opening up the concentration camps. It's literally months after the Second World War was ended, and he was there with the Air Force, and he happened to be walking through a boatyard in East Berlin before the wall was built, and he saw her. And he wrote to my grandmother about 2 boats that he liked. And he saw another one that was bigger than this boat, actually. And then he, according to the family story, he didn't talk a lot about it, but I've got the letters to my grandmother that describe a bit, and I'm sure there are more letters. Anyway, he found the biggest crane. Apparently, he found the biggest crane in Berlin to lift it up. So he then couldn't lift the bigger boat up, so he bought Saga. and she's 30 foot. And apparently he bought her from a professor, disabled professor from the university. She was built 10 years earlier than this, so she was built in 1936. Yeah. And the story goes that he put her on a train to go through the Russian-held territories of that area. So because partition was happening, and Russia's the bit that she went through was Russian-held apparently, and they were snap happy. So they shot at Saga. So Saga was trundled along on a train to Rotterdam, or I'm not sure where actually, but to the coast, where my grandfather met her and then put her in the water, but he had to fix the bullet holes before putting her in the water.
Wow.
Yeah, because the bullet holes just above the waterline, thank goodness. So this is the channel, the place we're at, which is near the Isle of Wight. You can see the Isle of Wight here. And at every hour in the day, you can see, at any hour in the day, you can see what the tide is doing according to when high water is.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
Hiya Josh, so can you introduce yourself, who you are, why you're here?
Okay, so I'm, as those of you know, my name's Joshua Smith, and yeah, I'm from Manchester originally. I'm a builder by trade, been a bit of an activist, and now world traveller / adventurer.
Brilliant. And so when Lucy Trinder asked you to come sailing, what did you think and what did you say?
Well, I decided maybe like 3 or 4 years ago that it was now a life goal of mine to sail around the world. So having to do that, I have to learn, obviously, how to sail. And so I've been looking for opportunities to sail for quite a while. Recently I was in Spain trying to find a captain who would teach me how to sail. So obviously when Lucy messaged me with an opportunity to go sailing in like 2 days notice, I dropped everything. So I had quite a lot of work booked in, so I messaged all my clients and was like, sorry, I need to rearrange now, and booked everything back. And jumped in my car and drove 5 hours down to Southampton, where I met Rory and in the boat. And yeah, I was absolutely psyched, buzzing.
So once you got to Southampton, you parked up in a shipyard, and you came to the boat and you met me. What were you thinking then when you saw this in front of you?
It was just surreal, to be honest. Very small, wooden, beautiful boat. I was already a bit aware of the history, Lucy had told me. Yeah, I mean, honestly, dream realised. Dream, like, it felt kind of surreal because, like, I've been thinking about this and dreaming about this and, like, drawing pictures of this. Like, for those of you know that when I was in prison for my activism, I was drawing endless pictures of myself and boats. To actually be on one, I actually be here, it feels a little bit like I've manifested this shit, to be honest. So yeah, pretty cool.
I bought her only about a year ago or so, but I took the boat on over 2 years ago, I'd say, from the Trinder family, as they needed help. Well, any boat like this needs a lot of maintenance and a lot of attention, and so they didn't have the time to do it, so I said I'd take it on, as I was a friend of the family. From there I fell in love with the boat, and a year later I then offered to buy her, and so now we're here. I own the boat, and I've been working on her for over 2 years, and I've tried to get her up to the point where we can sail her pretty effectively, quite a long way. And I believe that by the time I finished my university this year, only about 3 weeks ago, she was pretty much there, ready to be sailed. We're not finished with any of the restoration work, but she was ready enough to go.
So how old is this boat?
Well, the boat was built in 1936 in Germany, so it's an old boat. And built by shipyard in Hamburg and designed by a man called Arthur Tiller, who was a famous German yacht designer at the time.
It is a beautiful piece of work, to be honest. It really is.
Mm.
What kind of you must have learnt quite a lot having to work on this boat. Like, what have you been doing to it exactly?
I don't think anything in my life has taught me more than getting involved with Saga. A small yacht or a big yacht, a medium-sized yacht requires you to be an electrician, a plumber. For this boat, a woodworker. Obviously, you also need to stitch things, so sort of like a sewer, if that's a word. You need to be a navigator as well for sailing. An engineer for the engine. So there's so many different applications where you need to actually become an expert in or teach yourself. And I spent the last 2 years, I started off with the base level of knowledge, but I then spent the last 2 years really improving all of my knowledge in those different sectors so that I could fully restore the boat on my own. And we're moving towards that, but we're not quite there yet. But I've certainly learnt a lot. I don't feel like an expert, but I feel like I can move that way now. Yeah. And it's 11:30.
At 11:30,
It's just building.
It's slightly with us at Calshot. You can see that little arrow.
That's the eddy.
That's the eddy still. Yeah.
Yeah.
At 11:30 this morning, and then.
So that's what I got written down.
And then 10:30. Oh my gosh! Look at this. Look at this.
What?
Rory, this is with us too.
The
At
eddy-
10:30,
well,
it's with
I
us
think it's
inside,
always-
and 9:30, it's still with us. Look, there's
Yeah.
a bit of an eddy there. So
The good thing is it's going to help
is
us.
definitely good
Yeah.
for us.
And I've been told
Are
that
you saying it's always? Oh yeah. Okay. Wow.
it's not
This is
always,
8:30.
but
So at 8:30 this morning it still is as well, but then of course the
so it finally starts at 8:30. Yeah,
So-
but you see how there's another
But we
eddy
would
that
be
forms.
fighting.
Look at the second one. It gets stronger there, so it pushes us further along, and then suddenly the tide turns with us. But
This is 12:30. I see. So the reasoning is if we leave at 9 or whatever time you're saying, we're getting a little bit of the eddy.
we'll be getting
The
quite a
last
bit of the eddy. Yeah,
and the beginning of the eddy.
the beginning of it in a way. But you see here, -2, -3,
Yeah.
and then -4. We're getting this eddy.
Yeah.
But then suddenly we need to pick up the right timing at
Yeah.
Hurst Castle because that's
Yeah.
where it gets strongest.
And that's pretty much the start of the west-going channel.
And Hurst Castle should be
That's-
about 1 p.m.
Yeah, so
so-
1:30 in between these two.
There you go. So that's what I've written down. 1
Yeah.
p.m. Calshot Castle.
And at 1 p.m. Yeah, you can see it just
Sorry,
changing.
Hurst Castle.
At Hurst Castle, you can see it just changing.
Exactly.
At the start of the journey, we were crossing the bow of a ship, wasn't we? Do you remember that?
Yeah, in Southampton Water.
Yeah. Do you want to maybe explain what was going on with that?
Well, yeah, it was quite a windy day when we started our journey, and obviously Josh hadn't sailed the boat before, hadn't sailed at all, and Lucy hadn't done much sailing for a while. So we were just trying to get to grips with everything. And coming out of Southampton is very busy. There's a lot of ships out there, and we happened to be going on a downwind run out of Southampton Water, then turning west down the Solent, and a ship just happened to come out of a tanker port, and we didn't see it for a little bit, and he started throttling up, and then we were in his channel, and so he got a bit annoyed at us and gave us a beep. And it might have been the wrong move, but I decided just to cut straight across his bow quite quickly. There was still 500-600 meters to go until he came along, so there was enough time, but it was a bit risky. It wasn't a great start, but Southampton is just so busy, you have to sort of take evasive action quite quickly at times, and it showed Josh that it's definitely not perfect, the sailing often, especially out in the Solent with so much traffic. But
I know this is a dumb question, but for anybody who's not sure, what would have happened if we had a collision with this tiny little boat with that massive tanker?
Yeah, I mean that tanker's probably weighing in at 20,000 tons or something, and we weigh 7 tons. We're made of wood, so I think everyone can guess what could happen if we had a head-on collision. He's going 12-15 knots. We're going about 5. We'd be firewood very quickly, so we don't want that to happen.
No.
That's why we have AIS though. I'd like to say that he did see us fully, and he gave us lots of beeps, so he was aware of where we were.
This journey for you, it's been quite symbolic, really, hasn't it? Because Saga has been birthed. Where's she been birthed the last 60 odd years?
For about 60 years she's been in the Solent, which is opposite the Isle of Wight. She's been in Portsmouth.
Yeah, that's where we set off, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, well, Rory, you may have talked to Rory, and he's kept her in Brighton for about a year, and then he sailed her just before we met the boat, you and I.
This is like a bit of a symbolic journey, really, isn't it? Because she's leaving there and now making birth here in Dartmouth.
In Dartmouth, that's right, yeah. Which is funny enough where my father trained as a navigator. And my father's training was just a few miles
What's it
away.
like sailing this boat after obviously spending your childhood in this exact boat?
I've learnt even more about the boat. Yeah, with you sailing with us as well, it's been amazing. Yeah, it's emotional too. Yeah, because my father died 2 years ago, and yeah, it's really it's a part of me. Saga's a part of me. Yeah.
Would you say she's in good hands now?
She's in very good hands. Yes. Rory's really looking after her, and he's fixed a lot of things that have been derelict for years, and he's put extra bells and whistles for electronics in, which is fantastic because she's never had that before. But he hasn't overdone it, which is fantastic too.
Kept the spirit alive.
Yeah, she's still, I don't know, you probably can see the pictures. She's very much as she was when she was built, pretty much. Yeah.
How have you found this journey anyway, over a 2-day journey coming down here? What's your experience been like?
I was a bit nerve-wracked because I haven't been sailing for a little while. I was nervous. We set out, as you know, with quite a bit of wind.
Yeah.
And it seemed like we were going to be blown all the way down west, but it was good. It was lovely. We put the sails up the morning we left and motored out. It was brilliant, out of Southampton water, and my nerves went away straight away.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Have you enjoyed yourself?
Very much so. Very much so. Loved having you as well.
Oh, thank you very much.
Oh yes. I think that's what
That's-
you're talking
yeah,
about.
that's
This
the
is
back
cow
eddy.
shot and the
Yeah,
back
that's
eddy,
cow
and
shot to back eddy.
12:30. You've got the eddy there.
And it's 11:30.
At 11:30,
It's just building.
It's slightly with us at Cowshot. You can see that little arrow.
That's the eddy.
That's the eddy still. Yeah.
Yeah.
At 11:30 this morning, and then
So that's what I got written down.
and then 10:30. Oh my gosh! Look at this. Look at this.
What?
Rory, this is with us too.
The
At
eddy-
10:30,
well,
it's with
I
us
think it's
inside,
always.
and 9:30, it's still with us. Look, there's
Yeah.
a bit of an eddy there. So that,
The good thing
that
is it's going to help
is
us.
definitely good for
Yeah.
us.
And I've been told
What
that
was that? Oh yeah. Okay.
it's not
This is
always,
8:30.
but
So
it,
at 8:30 this morning, it still is as well. And then of course.
So, how much sailing experience have you had before coming on this voyage?
None. On the ocean, none. I've done my level 1 on a dinghy. But that's literally like what, 10 foot long on a basically a pond with no wind. So sailing a yacht on the actual ocean with waves and winds and tides, I was effectively thrown at the deep end. When I rang Rory about this opportunity, and Rory asked me, how much experience have you got sailing yachts on the ocean? I was like, none. And Rory was a bit like, well, I'm not really sure it's a good idea to jump in at the deep end. But yeah, I guess I'm kind of jumping at the deep end kind of person. And yeah, I mean, what was the question again?
How much sailing experience you had?
None.
So yeah, basically it's none.
Yeah.
So I took you anyway. Maybe that was the right decision, maybe the wrong decision. But once we got out there, how did you feel on our first day of the trip? How did you feel that, how were you reacting to everything? It was all a new experience to you. It was a new environment. It was possibly scary, possibly enjoyable. What was going through your mind in that first day, those first hours?
Well, I'm quite a practical person, quite a resilient person. So I wasn't really scared. I trusted that I was in capable hands with the 2 experienced sailors that we had. Yeah, I mean, I was just excited really. I was taking lots of footage, which you're all watching now. Yeah, I mean, it just felt like a dream had been realised. It felt surreal, like I'd actually been dreaming about this for so long, and now an opportunity just fallen on my lap to do what I've been dreaming about, and away we go. On to the first day. How do you feel like that journey went?
I was very nervous to start with, as always, when I'm skippering, because the boat isn't perfect yet, and you're always worried that something's going to snap, something's going to break, we're going to take on too much water, whatever, and also that we might run aground, or there's so many possibilities. So yeah, finding the rhythm on the boat with a new crew is always a bit nerve-wracking. So started off nervous out of Southampton water. The wind was quite strong at that point, but once we came out the Solent and the sun started shining, and came out into the Needles Channel and the wind dropped a bit, and yeah, we started to really get the rhythm of things, and it was going really well, and it went really well, the journey all round. We had one particularly hairy moment coming across the race at St Albans Head, and a squall hit us at the same time as going through the race with pretty big waves. We were looking at 2.5 metre waves or so the boat was really smashing through, plus then the wind picking up to 25 knots or so for a little bit with that squall was definitely interesting. That was probably the most intense bit of sailing we had. I could see the rigging on the leeward side flapping about. The boat was really smashing, and we were taking on water. I could hear the bilge pump pumping out quite quickly, so that was a bit scary, as a race always is. We came through it.
Can you explain what a race is?
Oh, okay. So a race, I might have also done another video when we were sailing about it, but it's basically where you have a headland, the tide's rushing around that headland quite fast because it points out, and there's obviously rocks that have fallen over time into the sea around the headland, and it makes it shallower. And so when the tide comes from a deep point going quite quickly to a shallow point, it flies up these new rocks that are sitting there underwater, and it creates a very bubbly, very wavy sea that is very confused and quite dangerous at times for boats, because it's shallow and deep, and the waves are they're creating quite big troughs, and so you can really smash through them. So it's not, races should be avoided at all costs, but we had to get somewhere, and going around the race would have taken another few hours, so we had to go through it. Yeah,
I found that has been one of the most enjoyable parts of the journey, to be honest. It really picked up then. I was quite psyched.
The difference is because he was a crew member and I'm the skipper and I own the boat, and so he's just worried about, he's not worried about anything, which is nice, and I'm worried about stuff breaking and everyone else's lives. If I was a crew member, I would have loved it, and I did love it at times, but I'm also constantly worried about things, and that's just the sad reality of being a skipper of a boat and an owner of one too. I don't always recommend it. Lots of stress. If you're not stressed, I don't think you care enough about your boat.
So then at some point does this current changes direction?
Yeah, well this is what we're trying to time, you see. So that's -1 high water. High water, the current now changes, look at the arrows.
So the plan is basically
changes at different times at different points, because that's the way that's what happens.
So basically, we're up here, we're coming down here and out here, and we're using the outgoing tides of have an eddy carriers out along here, and we're timing it so that when we get out to this point here, the tide switches from going against us to going with us, and it's going to carry us.
I mean, it is going with us this way, but it changes here later than it changes there.
You can see it on here, so if you like those little arrows. Sorry, I'm explaining to people who are watching. So those arrows. Wait, hang on.
There we go. This is
13:30
this afternoon.
13:30. The tide's coming this way, and then 1 hour later it switches and it goes that way, and we're trying to catch the tide going that way.
Because we're going west.
Yes.
Exactly, and we're going to this place here. We're hoping to go past this place here.
What's the purpose of moving your boat from this location?
Yeah, so from Brighton to Dartmouth. Why did I do that? I have been at university for the last 3 years in Brighton, and university just finished about a week ago. I just finished my last assignment, and I felt like I wanted to move back to the West Country, where I'm from, to I think a more beautiful place than Brighton. So I wanted to be based somewhere beautiful and sail somewhere with more scenery, which is also nicer to sail around. And so, yeah, I decided. Well, I had a look around, emailed quite a lot of people in Dartmouth, and eventually these guys came back to me saying they're building a new pontoon, as you can see here. And so I said yes. I just took them straight up on their offer. It was slightly cheaper than Brighton as well, which was a bonus. And without even seeing it or even coming to Dartmouth before, really, I said yes. And so that was the basis of our journey. Zooming forward to maybe 6-7 hours into the passage, we're well into it now. How are you feeling then? Same?
I was in awe at the beauty of all the lands. You could see a lot of the landscapes and the white cliffs, and it was really enjoyable. I really enjoyed it. It was fantastic.
Good. So then moving forwards again to when we motored into Weymouth and we moored up. It was quite late. I'm sure we were all tired. How did you feel then?
I was buzzing.
Didn't want to get off? You didn't want to run away from the boat?
No. I was.
A lot of people do.
No, I felt alright, to be honest. When it comes to like seasickness, I was telling myself I'm not going to get seasick on this journey. I'm not going to allow it. And there were a few times where I was rocking about, so yeah. When we made port in Weymouth, obviously I was happy to be on dry land again, but I was still eager to do the second part of the trip. I did get a little bit of seasickness because on the way out of Weymouth, and you said we went through the race with the choppy waves, I tried to sleep in a little bit, and because I'm in the front of the boat, the rocking of the boat is exaggerated quite a lot. So I'm in my bed, and I'm literally going like this, trying to sleep, and I'm catching air in the bed, like in the bed. And I'm like, this isn't happening. I can't get to sleep. So I thought, right, I better get dressed and get out and look at the horizon, because I started to feel a bit queasy. So I tried to get my clothes on. I'm trying to get dressed in a space about this big, whilst it's still going like this. Everywhere's throwing you about, and I managed to get my shirt and my pants, and I'm looking for my socks. At this point, you're really tossed about, and I started to feel a bit sick. So I thought, you know what, I need to just get out of this now and look at the horizon. You were saying that you'd rebuilt the engine at one point, is that right?
Yeah, last winter. It wasn't a full rebuild, but I certainly did a lot of maintenance to it. It's an old engine. I mean, it was put in the boat in the 80s, but it's a really good engine.
What engine is it?
Work. It's a Yanmar 2GM20F. So it's a 2-cylinder diesel engine. Last winter, as part of the winter maintenance of the boat, I stripped it down, did multiple oil changes to the engine oil and the gearbox oil. I cleaned the seawater cooling system, new impeller, new starter motor, new alternator, new belts, tuned it, all the rest of it, and it actually seemed to work quite well now, which was nice. Yeah. From the restoration part of the boat, there's also an improvements part of the boat. One of my upgrades for this boat has been the electronic system. I want to be sensitive to the designer and how the boat is and what she's like. She's an old boat, and I want to keep her classic. However, I think that bringing her into the 21st century with some new navigation equipment is quite good, and it's also for our safety out at sea. And I think if it's affordable enough, I think it's good to be extra safe. So electronics wise, I started off by improving the battery bank. We've gone from 2 batteries, one being an engine battery and one being a house battery, to 4 house batteries, an engine battery, and now a auxiliary battery, just in case anything goes wrong. Mm-hmm. The 4 batteries here are 6-volt golf cart batteries, deep cycle, 225 amp hours each. So that gives us a lot of capacity. I ended up doing all the wiring myself because it was a custom made thing, and I made the battery box that now sits in the port side of the boat, fiberglassed it in and then wired it. So then we have more power. I've added a battery monitor to now make sure that these new batteries are well maintained, because they're expensive. And then from there I improved the navigation system which runs off of these batteries. We I added a AIS system, automatic identification system, which helps ships see us at sea and also us see ships. It's a bit like radar, and it just means this is a very good safety point on the boat. Because we're a small boat, we will still ping up on ships' screens, which is I think really important out at sea. So that was one safety thing I did. Along with that, we added a GPS dome, and then wired that all into a multiplexing box, which is Wi-Fi enabled. This then can feed to our phones and tablets. So I'm sure the previous owner, the dad of the brothers and sisters that I bought the boat off, would be maybe slightly horrified to see that there's electronics like tablets now sailing this boat. I still like to have paper charts, but I've moved the boat into the primary navigation system being electronic. And so maybe that's not so classic, but it certainly helps with our safety out at sea, and I think it makes the sailing more enjoyable and a bit easier. The electronic system was a big upgrade that I did, and it took me a while over the winter. And that's one thing I learnt the most, was probably about electrics, because I started off thinking that it was sort of magic, how energy just gets transferred around on wires. And eventually, now I've been able to apply it to Saga. It's made a lot more sense in my mind. So it's been nice to learn that very niche, very complex trade. And I don't think I'm an expert again, but I think I'm now at a point where I can do quite a lot of electrics, and that's good.
This boat's been a real labour of love for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. It has to be a labour of love. I mean, why else would you buy a boat that's nearly 90 years old? Why would you buy a boat at all? I mean, they are just a money pit. Everyone knows that. And so, of course, that brings you to the point that it is a labour of love. And I do love the boat, and I fell in love with the boat over the last 2 years, as the Trinder family had done previously. And there's a reason why she's been loved for so many generations, and she has such character. And I think a boat like this, which has had so much time over the years put into it, I think requires and deserves even more love in the future, and I want to give it that as much as I can, and I think she's respected for that on the water as well. And that's a nice thing for me. Yeah.
You was talking about taking her out of the water and doing some real work on her. What was you thinking about doing to her?
Well, over the last few years it's been a restoration process, and I've done as much as I can to her with her in the water. I have taken her out of the water once and anti-fouled and done the bit of the hull, but I feel like the next chapter for the boat, maybe in a few years' time, once there's more money in my bank account, would be to do a more thorough restoration of her, so that she can last another 90 years in the future. It might even be in 8 years, 10 years time, but at some point I would love to properly, not take her apart, but gut the boat, redo a lot of frames, and redo things that have corroded over the 90 years. She's not perfect in any way. There's some rot here and there, and I would love to be able to bring her back up to as close as perfection as possible, and that would make me very, very happy. I think that's a life ambition of mine. It doesn't have to happen immediately, but I would love that. I would love to do that at some point. Take her out of the water, put her in a shed, take her mast off, have her fully tucked under covers, and really get to work. Maybe even a year or two it might take, but I think that would be fantastic for her. I think she deserves it.
I'm happy to help with that as well.
Good. I need the help. It's not going to be an easy job. I think I'm definitely going to need some help. So, yeah, I'm going to call Josh when that happens. I'm going to need his painter, decorator, and joinery, and all the rest of it. And I won't need his bricklaying skills, but I need everything else.
So overall, how would you say the first day went?
Really well. Yeah. We were slow at times, but we couldn't have helped that. We had the tide against us, then we had the tide with us. The wind died coming into Weymouth, but it was a lovely sunset. Everything went smoothly. We called up, they gave us a slot, and we motored in at about 9:30 p.m, maybe even 10 p.m. Just about had the light with us, so luckily I could see where we were going. So overall it was a great day. We had a little bit of everything. We had big seas, we had calm seas, and nothing at all at times, and then we were tacking about, going downwind out of Southampton water, lots of traffic. We saw a classic yacht race on the way out the Solent, and amazing scenery of the Jurassic Coast. So I think in terms of a first time sail for you, Josh, it couldn't have been better. I couldn't prescribe a better day to see everything sailing wise.
Yeah, it was quite remarkable.
Yeah.
How do you think I did for my first time sailing?
I was amazed, the fact that he hadn't really stepped on a yacht before, and he picked up everything very quickly. I've never seen anyone pick it up so quickly, to be honest. And it was a risk taking him on board entirely, because who knows what he would have been like. He might have hated it, and then we can't stop. There's no port to go into a lot of the time. So I'm glad that he stuck with it and he enjoyed it as much as he did. And yeah, he very literally learnt the ropes.
Literally.
Very well, very quickly. Picked it up in no time. And yeah, I was happy to trust him with the helm.
I was on the helm for quite a while.
And actually, he would helm more than me. I think you probably helmed a lot more than me in general, because I was doing navigation, and that was great to rely on you for that. Yeah, so brilliant. Yeah.
And the second day, how did you say that went?
So the second day was from Weymouth to Dartmouth, and the one big obstacle in our way was the Portland Bill. You know, it's also described as the most dangerous piece of water in the south coast of England. It's got a race as well, like the previous one I was talking about. And so we had to leave at exactly the right time, because the tide really rips around that headland, and it can go about 7 knots in the wrong direction if you time it wrong. So we left at 5 a.m. We decided to leave at 5 a.m. That gave us just over 3 and a bit hours sleep, basically, from the night before, because we came in so late and then had to have some dinner the night before. So it was a tough morning getting up. It was a beautiful morning though, and we had a great downwind run to Portland Bill from Weymouth, and luckily we did our planning really well and we timed it perfectly. We took the inner passage, which is very close to the lighthouse. The tide wasn't too strong, and then we pushed on out of the Bill, across Lyme Bay, and then basically the rest of the day we spent just travelling in a straight line, not doing anything, not touching the sails, just travelling straight to Dartmouth in a southwesterly direction. The wind died about halfway through our day, and so sadly we just had to put the engine on for the rest of the day. I think we spent about 7-8 hours motoring, but luckily my maintenance in the winter meant that the engine didn't give up on us. It actually did really, really well. I can say that now that we finished. I was really proud of it, and it literally motored us 4 to 5 knots all the way to Dartmouth. So yeah, it was a boring sail at times, but at the same time it was just nice to be out there. We were making a nice lunch and having a bit of a snooze.
Yeah.
It was relaxing. It was pretty easy, and that's all you can hope for a passage, and we're here now.
Because that's what you do when you get out. You get out of the boat, look at the horizon, and you will immediately feel better. I think the first half of the second day, I was just maybe the first third of the second day, I was feeling a bit like bit queasy, not the best. But as the oceans calmed down and we moved forward, felt better, felt good.
So then, once we passed the Bill, and that was quite rough, how did you feel that the rest of the day went? You know, was it as enjoyable as the first day?
Well, I think the first half of the journey we had quite strong winds, and we were making quite a good 6-7 knots on the sail, which was very cool. The second half of the journey, obviously the wind dropped off to practically nothing, and we had to do the engine. But I was very impressed with the autopilot system, the automatic tiller.
Tiller pilot.
Tiller pilot. We set that up. You set the heading on it, and we just let it go. And the engine was ticking over about 2,400 revs, and the boat's effectively steering itself. So we had just had time to lay about and chat, and I had some good chats with Lucy, and we took turns getting some sleep. I feel like that went really well. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so after all of that motoring in and finally getting to Dartmouth, how did it feel then actually motoring into the River Dart, and then up the harbour into our final destination?
Well, I was amazed at how beautiful the scenery was. Dartmouth is absolutely stunning. So how are you feeling now? We've finally made it. We've moored up.
Yeah.
We didn't sink.
I couldn't be more relieved. Obviously, I worry for a reason. and the fact that we're here now in my new marina, and it's such a lovely place.
In your new home.
In my new home, in the boat's new home, I couldn't be happier. Honestly, it hasn't really even sunk in yet how amazing it is. And I've already had lots of lovely people coming by, complimenting the boat, saying hi to me, and it's great to have lots of great people around and just generally be in such a nice place back in the southwest where I love. So I am so chuffed, so happy to be here. Yeah.
I'm so happy for you, Rory. You know, this is honestly such a beautiful place. Like, I'm paying like £300 a month basically to live in an absolutely gorgeous place. This flat's like your apartment. So I'm just happy for you. Like, it's amazing, and this entire experience has been amazing.
That's lovely.
I guess now I'm eager to get back to Manchester and eager to carry on with the work with my clients.
Yeah, so apart from going back to Manchester, how do you feel now that you've finally completed the journey, and how do you feel about yourself and yourself as a sailor, and what do you want to do in the future now?
It feels like, I don't really believe in past lives or any of that stuff, but I think if it was, I think I was definitely a sailor in a past life. Like, doing this sailing trip, it feels like it's strange, it feels like I've done it before. It feels weirdly familiar, even though I've never done it before, so it's interesting. I think for the longest time I've been feeling like a calling from the ocean, sailing, to do that. So yeah, weirdly enough, I felt at home. Felt nice.
That's good.
Yeah.
So
where I go in the future,
yeah,
I'm going to try and gain as much experience as possible on other people's boats. I'm going to continue my building business that has just started, and eventually I will own my own boat. And my goal is to circumnavigate the globe, either with somebody else's boat or on my own boat. I think when I say I'm going to do something, I like to say I get it done. So yeah, make sure you stay tuned for that.
so it's going to happen,
Yeah,
and this is the first step towards it.
it is the very first step, which I'm very grateful for.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, Josh. You've been brilliant.
Thank you very much.
come true, baby.